Welcome to LEAPCAST. I'm your host, Dr. George James. LEAP stands for Leaders, Entertainers, Athletes, and Performers. And I'm on a journey to connect with high achievers and highlight their unexamined human moments. Tune in to learn how these high-achieving LEAP individuals were able to reach their greatest potential, face their most difficult challenges, and embrace the human moments that helped them along the way. If you want to get the episode highlights directly in your email, then head to theleapcast.com right now to subscribe. Hey everybody, welcome back to LEAPCAST, where we talk to leaders, entertainers, athletes, and performers. Today is actually a different episode than what we've done before. Today, I have a special guest, my wife, Dr. Candace Robertson-James, which you'll hear more from her shortly. But two, today is the anniversary edition of LEAPCAST. LEAPCAST has been, we launched it last year, November 9th, actually, it came out. We was trying to aim for November 10th. So it was the 2-day celebration of the launch, the 9th and 10th, for LEAPCAST. And it's been a year. It's been a year since the podcast has been out. We've done 45 episodes, and the stories have just been amazing. And so before I go any further, people are going to ask, why you got a Phillies jersey on? And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Phillies because they've had a great run. They brought lots of great energy to the city of Philadelphia and surrounding area. And I was fortunate enough to bring my children to a National League Championship Series game and to a World Series game. And for us, if you've known a little bit about what is important to us is creative memories, and to be able to create an awesome, amazing memory through sports, through baseball, through just having a good time with them was really amazing. So shout out to the Phillies. And I also just want to give a backstory before I bring my wife in. When I was on this venture to start this podcast, I was thinking about what would be a really great date. And I was thinking through when I wanted to launch. I was preparing, I was going through some stuff. I had some glitches, I had some challenges. And I'm like, oh, when would be a great day? And I settled in on November 10th. And that date is actually something that's really special to me. It is the wedding date of my parents. And some of you might already know from the different things you've heard throughout the podcast, or you might just know my story, that both of my parents have passed, with my mother passing in 2021 and my father in 2016. And some of that is my way of, I just wanted to honor them of all they've done, all they've sacrificed, all that they've given me. That this is a kind of evolution of that journey, to have a podcast, to be able to share people's stories, to be able to inspire other people through their journey. It's really my way of just saying thank you to my parents, giving them a shout out, as they say, a tip of the cap, although I don't have one right now. But just really wanted to say thank you to them. And this year, they would have been married 48 years, which is just amazing to me. Awesome. Speaking about married, we've been married 15 years. And this is just a quick preview. We will eventually have a full episode with the two of us, where we'll be sharing a little bit about us, but I'm really going to be asking her a lot of questions. She will be the guest. But today, my wife came in for us to just talk. She's been an awesome, amazing supporter of LEAPCAST from the very beginning, when the episodes launched to present. She's actually listened to, I think, either all the episodes or about 99% of the episodes. So, for me, I've been just so grateful that I know at least one person has been listening to the podcast. And I know many of you have been listening to the podcast, and you've given such great support. I love just talking to people, and they will share their stories of what the podcast has meant for them, what they gained from it, or how a story or a guest really impacted them. So I brought my wife in, who has behind the scenes knowledge, as well as learning more about the podcast, to have a conversation today. So, Candace,
yes,
welcome to LEAPCAST. Thanks for coming today.
well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you celebrating the 1-year anniversary of
Yay.
LEAPCAST. Yay! Happy birthday. Leap class, we're just excited and congratulations and happy birthday, LEAPCAST. And I just want to give a shout out for the whole LEAPCAST this whole year, all of the guests who have participated, all of the guests who have just shared their amazing inspirational stories. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of LEAPCAST. Thank you for being a part of this vision and really inspiring so many people along the way this year. And we believe that so many more people will be inspired. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And happy birthday, LEAPcast, and congratulations to the 1 year anniversary. So thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And like I said, we will have more where we'll go in depth with this one over here who has an amazing story of her own, has done incredible things, and I'm just always in awe of her. But that is just more to come. Back to Leapcast, 45 episodes, and probably out of that 45, there's been maybe about 40 or so guests, and every story, every episode has brought me on some emotional, intellectual, spiritual roller coaster. I've just, I've actually been grateful and humbled to be in a place to help share people's stories or help to hear and how inspiring they were. Like people from all over the country. Actually, we had someone from London. Like, so we've had folks from like, it's been international. We've also had people from all different types of genres that fit into the leaders, entertainers, athletes, and performers kind of bucket that we've been talking about. We've had media personalities. We've had best-selling authors. We've had therapists. We've had educators. We've had community activists. We've had folks who are current athletes, Hall of Fame athletes, folks who work in uh, the office of different sports organizations, from the Philadelphia Phillies all the way to the Brooklyn Nets, to lots of different places. I mean, just people who are professors, artists, musicians. And I've been so excited about what people have shared. And if this is maybe your first episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to the episodes from the very beginning. We had veteran, we have artists, once again, so many people. And then what's in store is that we have action-packed folks who are coming, even more than what we've been able to do so far. Have been really connected to Leapcast and wanted to come and share. I have great interviews that are on the way, some that just recently released and some that's yet to come. And so I'm really excited and thankful. And so Candace, I know you want to ask me questions first, so you can start, and then I will ask the questions after. So, what are your thoughts? What is it you want to ask?
So I've listened to many of the episodes, as George has said. I'm so grateful to all of you who have been guests and all of you who have taken the time out of your schedules to listen to the episodes. And those of you who have listened routinely will know that there is an opportunity sometimes at the end where George will do a leap swap and the guests will get a chance to ask him questions. So I sort of feel like a leap swap a little bit, even though I haven't been an official guest before yet. But this will be sort of like a little bit of a leap swap in that. So as we celebrate the 1 year anniversary of Leapcast, I want you to take us back and share a little bit about what inspired the development, or how was Leapcast conceived, and what do you hope people gain from it?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking me that. And yeah, I guess this is a little bit of a leap swap. We did start off with doing a good amount of leap swaps, and we kind of pulled away. I still actually have some saved that I might release later on, where you get to learn a little bit more about my thoughts and my perspective. So when I think about, how did we come up with Leapcast and what made me want to do it? When I think about like podcasts, I've always been fascinated and interested in that. And if we go even a little bit further back, I've always been interested in the thought of radio and TV. And part of my career I've been fortunate to go on radio and TV and share thoughts and advice and for folks in their lives, in their relationships, in their families, in their businesses. And I love that. And part of my work over the years, just once again, for those who might not know, I'm a therapist. I've been working for over 20 plus years, helping individuals, couples, and families. I work a lot with couples, parents, families. Occasionally, I do a lot with men, adult men, fathers, and that has actually opened the door to do a lot of work with athletes and entertainers. And as I've expanded my work, I've been able to do lots of speaking and consulting for companies and to be able to help and support them. So, media companies, including, Paramount and some other places. And so it's just been really great to be able to take my experience and bring it to outside of the therapy room. So part of how LEAPCAST came is that I work with so many leaders, so many athletes and entertainers and performers that I hear their story over and over, and I hear how they've overcome their challenges or found a way through some moment in life, family moment, life moment, career moment, and I hear these stories, but not often other people get to hear those stories. Um, and oftentimes, when I think about people that we look up to, people that we say, "Oh, wow, I would love to be like her or him," or "Wow, they must be lucky," we often don't hear their human moments. We often don't hear one of the things I love to say, and part of this talk that I give, we often don't hear how they gave themselves permission, right? It's so important to give yourself permission, sometimes in your career, sometimes in your love life, sometimes in self care. And these folks, these amazing folks, we put them on a pedestal and we don't realize that they have challenges, that they might have struggled with anxiety or depression, or that they were one of 10 in a family, or they were rejected multiple times before. And in hearing their story and being able to say, wow, they did it, I think it encourages people. So that was part of my motivation. I wanted to encourage people. I wanted to inspire people. I know I've been inspired every episode, and whatever people are sharing, whatever they're talking about, I leave like energized and equipped. And that was my hope. I wanted people to come and be a part and listen or watch and say, "Wow, that was great. That was dope. That was inspiring." And that makes people say, "I want to maybe push further in their journey, or maybe give themselves permission." So, those were some of my thoughts and my reasons. Well, I guess with that, like, you've known this journey, you've seen behind the scenes for me. What's it been like for you seeing me prepare, uh, start, and continue throughout this time?
Yes. Well, I want to give you kind of just kudos because I think even in the launch of LeapCast, you really demonstrate just what you were saying of how you gave yourself permission. How many of us have great ideas or we think that we have a great idea, but we have an idea. And perhaps we feel, impassioned by that idea. We think it's a good idea. But, we might feel the limitations or the burdens, or we don't have the resources, or we don't have what we feel like we need to launch that idea, or we don't have the whole vision in place just yet. But I think one of the greatest things have been for me to just watch you go from having an idea, having a thought, having an idea, just letting that idea resonate and, conceive and share it with people, and then begin to put it into place, and to try to launch it, to birth it, and to really put it out there for people, not knowing how it was going to be received, not knowing, so much, but just having faith that, what, this is something that I'm feeling led to do. This is something that has been inspired to me as I, speak to all these people, and how the messages of so many people could really inspire other people to give them permission in their own lives to try something new, from this podcast to those ideas that we all have, that book idea that you might be having, or, something that you just want to do with your family or with your children, or, a business you want to start, or a program you're really passionate about. It's easy, I think, for us to think about why we can't do it. And I think, in the launch of this, it is, perhaps also easier than we would think to think about why we can do it and how we can do it, versus all the reasons that we can't do it. So I think just in seeing you press through, and you've had such amazing guests. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's really been impressive, the guests and their stories. So it's really been, I think, just an act of inspiration and an act of perseverance, and really just an amazing journey to watch you in this process this past year.
No, I appreciate that. And, as you know, I've had some challenges right along the way, right? Even right before the launch, uh, well, I'll just let y'all know, right before the actual launch last year, um, I had someone who was helping me produce, and they disappeared, like out of nowhere. I was so overwhelmed and anxious. And I think, like, when I think about my guests, there's so many moments where they could have given up,
Mhm.
or they could have pivoted in a different direction, but somehow they kept going, or they found a
Mhm.
way. And I think that was one of the things. Like, I believed in this. I believed in that this was the right time and moment, and I kept pushing through, even though I lost my producer, and even though was new, but I'm grateful that I had like support. And when you talk about like awesome guests, I am I'm just amazed, right? Like, and to me, there's two parts of this, right? One, the guests are just phenomenal. They're amazing. Their stories are just incredible and impactful to so many. And what has hit me in all of this is that a lot of these guests are my friends. Like, and I'm like, to recognize over the years the people I've been able to connect with and the relationships I've been able to build, and their willingness to join and share on the podcast. Now, some people haven't been friends before, but they became friends after. Right? There's some
Yes.
folks um, that I'll tell the story of, like, Brian Dawkins. He's known widely in the Philadelphia area, and for those, I'm based in the Philadelphia area. I have some guests that are connected to Philadelphia, as well as across the country and the world. And so Brian Dawkins is, well known, well respected in the Philadelphia area,
Absolutely.
Hall of Fame football player,
Mhm.
motivational speaker, author,
Mhm.
and so much. And he wasn't a friend before. He
Mhm.
wasn't someone I knew before. And it was actually someone, I was doing a program for the Phillies, and the Phillies are coming up. I don't mean this, they're just coming up. I was doing a program. They have this program called Strike Out the Stigma. And I was supporting that. I was a part of a panel just talking about mental health in sports. And while I was there, one of the guys that's there, who's become a friend, who's like, Brian Dawkins has a book out talking about some of this stuff. You should have him on your podcast. And I love how he just said it just casually, just matter of fact. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna call up Brian Dawkins and I'll just invite him to the podcast. But actually, that's what I ended up
Yes,
doing.
absolutely.
That's what I ended up doing, is like, through perseverance, through trying to find a way, I was able
Mhm.
to reach out to him, and he was willing to come on. I was just so grateful. And his story is just awesome. Like, there's things I
Amazing.
didn't know about him. There's
Mhm.
a way that you can't listen to him for 5 minutes without being
Mhm.
fired up and
Mhm.
motivated and
Mhm.
energized. So, just folks who have been my friends who are willing to join, folks who I've been affiliated or connected with, and then folks who they became friends throughout this
Mhm.
process. So it's been really great and an awesome journey.
Yes, I mean, I think I forgot about the initial timing of some of the challenges that took place in the beginning, and I think it just really shows how you have embodied so much of the spirit of the stories that you've captured this past year, even in the launch of this, that you were able to keep on going, to not see the challenge, to not be blocked by those challenges and those things that happen, but to say, nope, I'm just going to keep on moving forward. I'm going to keep on going. and to not limit ourselves to, think that, the sky is the limit as far as who your guests could be, and have been. And I think, I'm curious to hear, and perhaps many others may be curious to hear, what have been some of your highlights of this past year, and what have been some of your, most memorable moments as you kind of, I know you've had so many, you said 45 episodes, that's a lot to reflect on. So if he doesn't highlight your specific podcast, it was a favorite as well. So what have been some of your highlights and memorable moments as you reflect on this past year?
Yeah, like you said, I've had so many, and I think that I love every episode in one way or another. Something that somebody says, um, like I will say, like when I think about the episodes that I think about and try to share quite
Mhm,
often, one of the ones I think about uh, early is a good friend of mine
mhm,
that I've known since college, BJ Johnson, who has worked at USA Basketball and now works for the Brooklyn Nets and does so much more beyond that, and how he has impacted lives. But like his ability to just believe and to see and to dream, that was part of the episode. I think the episode title was talking about dreaming. Uh, and his actually episode came out on February 9th, which was actually
mhm,
my birthday.
mhm,
And it says secret ingredients to success: dream, believe, and be enthusiastic. And that's really him, right? Like
mhm,
the way that he was able to share that without a doubt, like where he is and what he thinks about. I left inspired. I left thinking about what are my dreams, and the thought of like not just, oh, I dream to like have a lot of money. No, like I dream to be of purpose, of impact, and to stretch, right? Like sometimes we have these goals that are just easy, or we can say step one, two, and three, and we'll get there. But it's so important that we have stretch goals. And I think one of the things he said in the podcast that I remember saying that while he was trying to walk onto the basketball team at Villanova, where we both were undergrad,
mhm.
actually, all of us were
All of
undergrad
us.
there. Um, how he saw his name on the back of the jersey. I mean, it sounded simple, but it was so profound to me. The thought
Mhm.
of, do you see yourself in
Yes,
the future? Do you see yourself in that goal?
absolutely.
And so many times we have goals, but we don't necessarily
Yes,
see ourselves getting there.
yes,
So I just
absolutely.
love that. And I share it often with people to really support and encourage them.
Mm.
There's a lot more. I mean, people who have done things like Tasneem, who is Taz, and I know her and I know her journey, how she created Black Men Heal,
Yes.
and the work of creating a therapeutic safe space
Mhm,
for Black men,
mhm,
where they offer. At least initially, they start off by offering 8 free sessions to
mhm.
Black men. Now,
Awesome.
some of this, right? Being a therapist in the field, I have known just the overall stigma, right, of therapy for lots of people and lots of different
Mhm, mhm.
populations. And for the most part, Black men aren't the highest number of people coming into therapy. And being a Black man in the field, I think that has softened it, where
Mhm,
people might feel they can come to see me or work
mhm,
with me, or where their spouse or family or partner
mhm,
might say like, "Hey, can you work with us or
mhm.
our family?" But I also know that there are so many barriers to treatment. So
Yeah.
like knowing her journey and hearing her share the ups, the
Mhm,
downs, the challenges, and how her work and the work of her team and the things that they've been doing have
mhm.
been national, right? Have
Right.
impacted men across the country, Black men
Amazing.
across the country, have inspired Black men to think about therapy in a new
Mhm.
way.
Right.
So I think about that, and I'll highlight two more that I can think about. There's so many
Mhm,
that really have stuck out. I'll share another one of those kind of opportunities. I got connected to Malik Yoba
mhm,
through a mutual contact, and I was just grateful that they were willing to connect me to
mhm,
Malik Yoba, and he was willing to join.
mhm,
And knowing his career as an actor, but also
mhm.
then learning about him being a musician,
Mhm.
being an artist, his perseverance. His episode was using all of your talents to empower yourself and our others, and how he was really intentional, right? The thing he mentioned about, sometimes we have this one talent that we really lean into and
Yes.
focus on,
Yes.
right? But there's
Mhm,
like three or four other talents that we could develop and grow that could
Yes.
expand our impact and, as he said, our income as well. And so I
Absolutely.
appreciated that. Of course, I, being of Jamaican background, talking about Malik Yoba, we can't talk about him without talking about, cool
Yes,
run-ins,
yes, yes.
and how, like, I didn't realize how many people love that movie
Oh, yes.
of all backgrounds, like
Yeah.
regardless of ethnicity or where they grow up. Like a
Mhm.
lot of people, I was in a conversation, people were like, Sanka, you're dead. Right? Like this line that people will say from the movie, right? And
Mhm.
so his ability to join and what he's done and
Yes.
how his entrepreneurship right now is just so amazing.
Mhm.
And if I was gonna highlight, just one more, obviously there's more I'll highlight, but let me
Mhm.
just say, I have a good friend in the field. Her name is Erin Earnshaw. Liz Earnshaw, not Erin, sorry, Elizabeth Earnshaw,
Mhm.
Liz Earnshaw, uh, and how she has done this incredible work in therapy. And right around our time of our episode, her book came out, and we were
Mhm.
able to talk about that.
That's awesome.
And I just loved her journey, what she's done,
Mhm.
and how she's expanded and how she's helped people. So, once again, from therapists to entertainers to athletes to
Mhm.
I didn't even get to my media people.
Yes.
So that's just four quick ones that have
Yes.
been
Yes.
great for me.
Yes.
How about you? I know you have listened to a good amount of
I
episodes.
have. I
What
have.
kind of what jumps out for you?
Well, first of all, I have to shout out BJ because we're all friends. Like George just said, we all met at Villanova. Shout out to the Nova Nation listening. But he said something, and I had to find it before we did this because it was just so profound and so powerful. And he said, you can never outperform your own self image. And that just landed. It was, again, these simple nuggets, but these things are just words of truth and affirmation and cause us to really reflect. And we have to think about, what we think about outperforming so many things. We think about the fact that we have to work so hard and, strive so hard. And we have these systems in place and we have inequities and we have all of these things that we are trying to outperform in our lives. But the reality is the greatest thing that we are trying to outperform is our own self image. And if we never can conquer our own negative self image, then we can never excel beyond that. We can never have that dream, or we can never do those things, or even give ourselves permission if we are struggling with the constraints of our own negative self-image. And that really it is just, even when I heard it again today, it really challenges me and my own thoughts to think about what are the ways that my own self-image is limiting. What are the deficit mindsets that I've adopted
Mm.
about myself? What are the things that are self-harming, the self-harming thoughts or messages that maybe have been so normalized that they seem just, a part of my image, but they're not. And so to think about that, to think about in all of our striving and all of our imagining and all of our desiring of our goals and dreams and wanting to manifest purpose and walk in destiny and all of those amazing things that everyone in their amazing stories have been able to persevere through, that we are, and we know this, we are our biggest struggle, that negative self-image. You can never outperform that. You can never outstrive that. You have to deal with it at its root, at its core, and you have to suck it out. You have to get it out. And so we can't just, cut the weed off at the leaf. If it's there, the roots are still there. We can't outperform that. And so that was just something that is amazing. I think it's so important for so many people. So many people are just, at our core struggling with our own self-image, our own disbelief that, could we really do that? I mean, of course, those other people could do it
Right.
because they have X, Y, and Z, but could we do that? Or from where we came from? Or did you see my bank account? I couldn't do that. Or did you see my educational level? I couldn't do that. Or did you see whatever the circumstance is? So many of us put ourselves in a box that, not for me, it's only for them. So that really, I just think is so profound. And I think it's, I think that you have really unleashed something here. And I think there are so many powerful keys of wisdom as we listen to your guests. I think one of the things that I more broadly was struck by is the amount of challenge in everyone's story, that again, you can look at the end game, you can look at the final scene and feel like, oh wow, that's just so amazing, they're just so gifted and talented. And yes, they are gifted and talented, and yes, we are all gifted and talented, but that does not mean that they did not encounter true struggles and challenges, and that they had to face a pivotal moment where they were either going to decide to believe in themselves or their dreams, or not. And that it wasn't, their belief was not because they had an easier time or easier, a sort of paved a sidewalk ahead of them, that some people had really really great challenges and really significant costs. It could have been a significant cost. I mean, they put it all on the line. It was going to be to succeed or to have nothing. I mean, there wasn't like the huge safety net for everyone. And so I think that was super motivating to understand the amount of risk that people were willing to take for their beliefs and the amount of belief that they had in themselves. Another episode that I heard not too long ago that I really loved was Yaneli. And I really just appreciated her story. I shared it. I share them all. At first, I was sharing everything. And then I'm like, okay, no one's going to believe me. I'm like, every week, I'm like, this episode for real. You have to see this episode. And then the next week, I'm like, okay, guys, this episode, it's a must watch. And then the next week, it's a must watch. So I'm like, okay, I can't say that every single week because people are not going to be able to understand. But Yaneli's episode, it was inspiring because she just talked about her own journey through financial freedom. And now she is a financial educator and does so much to empower people around their finances and wealth building. And I just feel like, again, her story is so many of our stories, talking about, going to college and getting into so much debt from the collegiate experience, and so many people have her story, but so many people don't have her outcome, right? So many people have the first part of her story, but not as many people have the latter half of her story, where she was able to turn it all around and not only eliminate the debt, but to really be in a position to grow wealth. And so I was just struck by how she was able to do that, and that she turned it into a life passion to educate others of how to do that. And that really inspired me. I also appreciated Malik Yoba's story. I thought that was a really important thing. We invest in, this one gift that sometimes it's the gift that maybe we feel like can earn us the most money. It's a gift that we feel like, is translatable to a job. Perhaps it's the gift that others encouraged the most in us. But the fact that we all are multi-gifted and multi-talented, and the fact that, what we watered the most has grown, that it's not that we didn't have other seeds. We just watered that one the most. And what would happen if we were a little bit more strategic sometimes in saying, yes, this is great, I'm going to water this in this season, but now there are some other seasons. Now maybe I can take some time to water some other seeds, some other gifts that I have, and to know that whatever we water, that's what's going to grow on every side, And so those are some of the different episodes.
And just to shout out what you mentioned was, Nelly's episode was episode 40. Watch me work from 20,000 in debt to building wealth. We also just talked about Malik Yoba. His episode was 38. Using all of your talents to empower yourself and others. And we talked about BJ as well. And I think I mentioned also Liz Earnshaw, who was also really great. Her episode came earlier in the year. There it is, episode 15. Dancing on the fine line between passionate and impulsive. Just great episodes. There's so many more. Go ahead. I think you're going to ask me something.
More. I know. As I hear, I'm like, oh, and this, and Professor Kristen Henning from Georgetown. Her episode was amazing. She really talked a lot. Well, she talked about her book as well. That have been released, The Rage of Innocence, talking about how we criminalize Black youth. And there's a wealth there. I mean, we can have a whole 10 sessions about that. But I was also, again, just struck by, she talked about growing up in a family where faith and advocacy were
Yes.
two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
right? And so it was in her blood and her roots. And it was just a fascinating story about how she was able to hold on to that, hold on to those roots. And I just so resonated with that, as, you know, being a family of faith and advocacy and social justice, and thinking about how people actualize that and how she has been able to actualize that within her career arc. And so that was fascinating. And her book is amazing, and she's amazing. The work that she is doing is so pivotal, and it's so important to our culture and our society and to our own liberation as we think about the narratives that we have about Black youth in our society, and the stories that she shared. I've talked about them in my classes.
Wow.
It's so important, which, you know, we can't talk about Black narratives without talking about Travian Shorters. Shout out to Be Me and our Be Me family and Be Me community as well. And so just hearing his story as well of how he got to where he is, and how Be Me was conceived and birthed as well. You know, I just really appreciate those stories and his thoughts about, I love the story he shared about his daughters, and, you know, not wanting them to be in a school system or immersed in a system that does not center themselves, that centers whiteness instead of centering Blackness. And so where they are not the friend in their story, they are the main character. And I think that's so powerful. And we all need spaces, and we need to create and be purposeful about creating spaces where, you know, we are the hero in our own stories. I have a book called Reflections of Me. It's kind of highlighted behind me. But
Yes.
you know, I always say, as I sign books or have book signings or discussions with people, I always say, be your own hero. You know, you are the hero of your own story. And we need to be more purposeful about cultivating spaces in our society where we teach people that they are actually the heroes of their stories. They're not on the sideline, they're not the best friend. They are the hero. And we have to do more to make sure that every child knows, every adult knows that they are a hero.
I see how she's already dropping gems, right? Like, wait till we have her on when she joins me officially on Leapcast, and we will share more about her journey and our journey as a couple. And so you just highlighted episode 45, which is actually the one right before this, Travian Shorters, called "Go That Way," changing the narrative of Black people through asset framing, love, power, and community. And before that, you highlighted uh, Professor Kristen Hennon and her episode, which was also once again another great episode, and just sharing where, you know, her work and her book that was recently out and also quoted on New York Times. Episode 24, uh, Professor Kristen Hannon, Race, Adolescence, and Policing. And I just want to highlight, you know, I've said before that part of my career in the, you know, 19 years official that I've been doing this work, 21 years when I include like graduate work. All those 19 years, I've been blessed and fortunate to be on TV 19 years. I've been fortunate to share therapeutic, mental health, wellness advice on TV. And I've built up some friends along the way, some media, and I'm also on radio. And I've built up some friends. So I just want to highlight my media friends that joined and was willing to be a part of this. We were able to kind of flip the table. Usually they're asking me, so I got to ask them and hear their journey. Started off real early with Christy Ileto, and her episode is episode 3, balancing breaking news and self-care. And I was so profound by like how she talked about, especially being a woman in the field and being a woman of color in the field, and how she dealt with injustice or negativity and had to like be on camera, and we would never know all that she was going through. And so just sharing that part, and I really appreciate that she was willing to do that. We also had um Patty Jackson, who is a radio icon, who recently just had a birthday in the month of November. And her work of being 40 years on the radio, that just doesn't happen. right?
No.
Like for folks on the radio, they come, they go, they might maybe have a few
Mm-hmm.
years, but not
Mm-hmm.
decades,
So true.
right? So it
So
talks
true.
about like what she has been able to
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, I also had Mike Jarek, who is known for a Good Day
Yes.
Philly and has had opportunities. And I just really appreciate not only his willingness, but his just his vulnerability. Like in that episode, even though we had some technical difficulties, he was emotional and shared and talked about his family and decisions he made based off of his family. A good friend of ours, Stephanie Humphrey, who has been on TV and media in so many different ways. And her episode 14 that said shifting your mindset by running through your gratitude list. Another really great episode.
Yes.
Um, there was Allison Morris, who I have known since my work with NBC News Now, which is their national streaming platform. As she was on that platform and then has now transitioned to do some other work. And her episode was episode 18, Achieving Greatness Through Perseverance, Focus, and Adventure. And I have to also shout out Jeff Gibbard because he was the guy behind the scenes early on that was helping me think about podcasting. He has done multiple podcasts. His episode was 19, Becoming a Hero in Your Own Choice. Uh, Lots of media personalities, folks of different. We had Lisa Salters from ESPN and her work and how being just pioneering the field, what she's been able to do. I'm so grateful that she was able and willing to join and share her story, uh, winning awards, doing a whole bunch of different things. And you can still see her now, like NBA finals or football games. You'll see her. And then I have some more media folks that will be coming up. We also have Sherry Gregg, who has been in media for a while, but also talks about her career transition into journalism. And she is episode 42 that says, "Don't let the golden handcuffs keep you from your dream." And the last shout out I'll give, as I'm just kind of going through some of the media folks, someone who's become a friend. He and I met on the Today Show, and since then we've just stayed connected. And his name is John Gordon, Wall Street bestseller, speaker. He speaks all over to companies and organizations, and he was willing to join once again. And what makes it special is that we became friends. I started to know more about his work, the Energy Bus being one of those, and I then took the Energy Bus for Kids. And that became something that we read or that we read often in our own household. So being able to do that, the backdrop of this is that some of these episodes have made me a hero in my own kids' lives. And so I'm just grateful. So I just wanted to highlight some of my media folks because they've been there for me and I've been there for them. And so I just want to say thank you for joining me in this past year.
So I hope if you were sitting here and if you haven't listened to all of these episodes, I really hope you are making time, setting a schedule to just put these episodes on. They are all so great, so enriching. The stories are so powerful, so inspiring. We can go on and on and on and on to call out all of these amazing stories. You have Leon Ford, you have Shaka Singora, who's talking about the power of journaling.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's another one I share quite often.
Yes.
And the other thing actually is that I have clients that listen to these episodes. Some clients have said, look, one client told me, I think I should be paying you double because I'm getting like extra therapy in between our sessions, which that was so meaningful to hear that. And like the Shaka's episode, I've shared with multiple people and clients because it's not only about his journey, but the power of journaling. And, maybe we'll get into this before we close, is that across the board, we were talking about mental wellness, right? Everybody from the very beginning to every episode, there was some aspect, and some people go even deeper in what they do. So I might end with that.
Yeah. So I do have a couple of questions before we kind of start to wrap up whenever that is. But I wanted to know, as I listen to so many of these stories, I think the common arc of these stories is inspiration. I don't think I've left one episode without feeling like, oh, I need to be doing some more with my life. That there are things that, desires or interests or ideas that I haven't moved forward with or haven't given myself permission to move forward in that capacity. in the courageous and bold ways in which so many of your guests have. And so I'm wondering, I know you've been talking so much about hearing people's stories and really the Leapcast being an opportunity for us all in the public to engage in people's stories, and really at the heart of it in the way that they gave themselves permission to dream and to actualize some of those things despite society, despite limitations, despite health issues, despite not necessarily having all the affirmation or even resources at times. So I'm wondering, as you have engaged with all of these guests over this past year, how do you think people gave themselves or found that? How can we think about how we can actually move forward in giving ourselves permission?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. So I've been doing this talk called I Give Myself Permission now, and it's really brought me in front of lots of great people, leaders, the same entertainers, athletes, community organizations, faculties,
Mhm.
uh, teams, lots of different places. And this thought that sometimes we don't give ourselves permission.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to rest or to take care
Yes,
of ourselves.
very true.
Yeah, sometimes we just do and do so much that we don't
Mhm.
really take that moment. And then when we really push and expand,
Mhm.
sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to love or to be
Yes,
loved, to move on, or
yes.
to go after those goals and those dreams. And one of the things that we have that I share when I do the talk is actually this bracelet that maybe some of you will be able to see that says, I give
Mhm.
myself permission. Maybe I'll get it in focus. Although there it
There
is,
you go.
permission.
Mhm.
And then, for folks out there, it's really about sometimes we tell ourselves no,
Yes,
or someone has told us
very
no,
true.
or our family or society or culture or the
Mhm.
narrative out
Yes,
there is no.
yes.
And sometimes we have to give ourselves permission. And so when I hear the folks that have been on
Mhm.
the podcast who have shared um, across the board,
Mhm.
everyone at some point gave themselves permission.
Yes,
I love the musical artist and actor Major,
yes.
who talks about his story and how hope is something that
Mhm.
has been key for him and his life. And he talks a
Yes.
lot about being giving himself permission in a family where he could have gone one way or the other.
Mhm.
And what he did and how he had to pursue music and
Mhm.
constantly give himself permission.
Yes.
um, One of our actually top episodes has been
Yes.
David Mann, who some of you might know
Awesome.
um, as he has appeared in movies and TV shows. He's been around Tyler Perry in some of his stuff from Meet the Browns. You know him as Mr. Brown. I think he was
Mhm.
recently on a show called Assisted Living, and he's been on TV. And even
Mhm.
before
That's
that,
awesome.
right? Like
Yes.
he's a singer. I was
Mhm.
known for his work with like Kirk Franklin and the Family, and he's been on TV, has their own shows, all of that, and
Mhm.
how he was willing to come on episode 23, respecting yourself and being confident in your abilities. But
Yes.
really, what was profound was how he talked about his journey with mental
Yes.
health, right? His
Yes.
journey with depression and
Mhm.
what that was like for him,
Mhm.
and what was, how he had to give himself permission, right?
Mhm.
That it's
Mhm.
okay to talk about it. It's okay as someone that's in the public. It's okay
Mhm.
as someone that's on
Mhm.
TV.
Mhm.
It's okay as a man. It's okay as
Mhm.
a black person. It's okay as a black man, as
Mhm.
a father. All the identities and roles, he had to
Absolutely.
constantly give himself permission to do it.
Absolutely.
And what I saw not that long ago
Mhm.
was that he was on the Tamron Hall show sharing his story. And I was
Awesome.
like, I think we were one of the first ones to get the scoop, right? He was here on
Awesome.
LEAPCAST, sharing his
Congratulations.
story, but just grateful that
Mhm.
people have been able to do that. So I
Mhm.
think, I've seen people make pivots in their life.
Yes.
Paul Brunson's episode,
Mhm.
he is called actually Living
Mhm.
Off Script, episode
Yes.
34. And he talks
Yes.
about how he was basically learned and educated in the business arena
Mhm.
and made a pivot to now being a
Mhm.
TV personality
Mhm.
with multiple shows, with
Mhm.
being in the UK's Married at First Sight. He's one of
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
experts there. So they're just, it's profound. And when you hear it over and over again,
Mhm.
it sometimes allows us to say, why am I not giving myself permission?
Yes.
Why am I holding back? And
Yes.
and that is a major theme of this podcast. in these episodes, in their leap story,
Mhm. Yes.
I'm really asking, how did you give yourself permission? And we're
Mhm.
even going to be even more clear and direct about that
Yes.
as we move into this second year of
Mhm.
LEAPCAST, as
Yes.
people are going to be sharing that part of their journey, the part of their leap story even more. So I've just seen it across the board. People who didn't give up
Mhm.
when it felt like it. And to be honest, like in this past year, there are moments I'm like, maybe I've done enough, right? Maybe it's time to stop. Whether it was the time, whether it was the cost, whether it was because of other things I had to do in my
Mhm.
life, I thought about like stopping. But every single time I would have a conversation with someone, I was like, this is amazing. This is for me. Who cares? Everybody else, like, I want you to listen, I want you to watch. But I also was at the place of like, I love the opportunity just to
Yes.
share and be, and it added onto my ability to give
Mhm.
myself permission. So it's been a big theme and has allowed me to not give up, not quit, and has
Mhm.
allowed me to inspire other people, and has
Mhm.
allowed me to add to this talk that once again I've been fortunate
Mhm.
to continue to do in multiple
Mhm.
places this year across the country. In where I've been able, from
Mhm.
Colorado to
Mhm.
Phoenix to Miami, to Philadelphia, and multiple
Mhm.
places. So I'm excited that the talk will support the podcast, and the
Mhm.
podcast will support the talk.
Yes, so you heard it. We want you to think about as we continue into year 2, and even into 2023. We want you to tune in to think about how, to identify what are some of those areas in your life where you're not showing up and giving yourself that permission, and to then listen to Leapcast so that you can figure out how you can be more proactive and deliberate and purposeful in giving yourself permission. So
Yeah.
we look forward to hearing about that. Now I have another question. So in the past couple years, really, definitely since the pandemic, we have had, I think, an increased awareness of the importance of mental health and mental wellness within our society at large. We've had certainly more prominent figures speaking about their own struggles with mental illness, and coming, forward. We've had just an abundance we saw during the pandemic. I mean, people couldn't even access services. That's how many people were trying to access services. So we certainly have a bit of an awakening of the importance of mental health, mental wellness, and everything that we do. And so that has been wonderful. However, I say I'm in public health, and even before the pandemic, nobody outside of public health people knew what public health was. And where we are now, people have heard the term, but I'm not quite sure they still know what it is and all that it entails. And I'm wondering, as we kind of, do you feel similarly around mental wellness that people know that it's important? They know they've heard other people who are struggling, they themselves are struggling. We know so many people are struggling with depression and anxiety and so many other mental illnesses and mental conditions. But I'm wondering, how do you actually define mental wellness? I always would say, could we pick it out of a lineup? Could we identify what exactly are we striving for? What
Yeah.
does it look like?
Yeah, and that's actually been one of the questions
Mhm.
I've asked
It's so important.
every single guest, because I wanted to highlight the
Mhm.
importance of mental wellness. I
Mhm.
wanted to highlight mental health. So a lot of times when we hear the word mental health, we think
Mhm.
about disorders, we think about mental
Mhm.
illness,
Yeah.
and that's a part of it, and that is
Mhm.
important. There are people who are dealing with uh, chronic levels of mental illness. They could be schizophrenic, they could be
Mhm.
bipolar,
Mhm.
they could be severe levels of depression or
Mhm.
intense levels of depression
Mhm.
or anxiety, and we can think about those things. But the majority of
Mhm.
the population is dealing with some unease, some emotional challenge,
Mhm.
and they might not feel mentally well. They might not
Mhm.
feel like the unease, the difficulties, the
Mhm.
the stress, the anxiety, the depression that they feel, the worry that consumes them, the challenges that are there, that it impacts their daily life, which has been a
Mhm.
part of the work that I do. It impacts
Mhm.
their who they are as a person. It impacts relationships that they may be in or hope to be in. It impacts their family, parents, cousins, or children if they have. It impacts them at work. That mental wellness, if we are not in a mentally well place, it can have significant consequences for people. So when I think about mental wellness, it is the ability to deal with challenges, unease, anxiety, depression, some of these things, and still move forward to live your best life, right? Wherever that is or whatever that looks like. And so sometimes, in order to do that, we need help and support. We need a therapist, a counselor, a coach, or someone that we go to. We need to listen to a podcast, go to a talk or something that helps us to come up with tools or resources or activities like journaling, or even for some folks, medication that helps them to overcome or manage or deal with some of that unease, some of that stress, some of those challenges, so that they can go ahead and live their best life. Because part of being the work that I do, from being a therapist to a speaker and consultant, is that I see so many people where you're like, wow, you're so amazing, you're so awesome, you're so talented, you're so beautiful, there's just so much about you, but yet that person doesn't see it because of their negative self-talk, their narrative, their anxiety, their overwhelmed, their unease. And a lot of this is to say, wow, that guest you had on LEAPCAST, they dealt with some similar things that I dealt with.
Right, right.
And yet they were able to do that. And some people, they didn't have the resources. They didn't have, somehow they gave themselves permission. They got the support they needed. They maybe saw a therapist. I love what Travian said at the end, which is really meaningful for me. The thought of that some people only started to think about therapy or going to a counselor because of who they associated with. If they had other people talk about it, they were more open to it. And being thankful that I've been in places and situations where people were more open to therapy. I've seen it with friends, family, colleagues, people across. Even one of the main reasons why I do the media stuff is for that. So yeah, those are all the things that I think about with mental wellness. Of course, she did what I do with my guests because they don't know what they're going to answer, and I didn't know, but that's kind of what I think about.
Awesome. Well, I have one more question.
Of course you do.
So another question that I'm going to steal from the Leapcast is one of the things that I would love to know, being a therapist and doing this work with so many people and asking this question of your guest as well. What advice, knowing what you know now about the importance of mental wellness and what it means, and seeing all of the ways it plays out in people's lives, what advice would you give your younger self?
It's not fair. She can't steal my questions. That's not okay.
And
Right.
okay.
So yes, every episode, that is, these are questions I ask everyone. And when I think about it for myself, I would say that um, the what you're saying to yourself is not true. Right. When I think about the negative self-talk that I've had to work through or power through or recognize, like, oh man, that's a lie. Like, that's not true. Like, when I look back, I'm like, I thought whatever was going to happen, or whatever about myself, or whatever about a situation. When I look back, I'm like, that's just not true. And if I had was able to believe the opposite, or have a different narrative, or even have the narrative I have right now about myself, and how I try to do that now when those moments come up, when I have moments where I think about, oh, can I do this, or is this too much? Even the times when I was like, can I continue with Leapcast? I had to believe that no, that's a lie. Of course I can. I can find a way. I can work through some things. And I know I hear, so many of you do the same, that negative self-talk, the thing that says you're not good enough, the thing that says you're not smart enough, that you're not handsome or pretty enough, that whatever it's saying, or that you won't make it, or that other people can but you can't, it's a lie. And if we can accept that it's a lie, right? It doesn't mean that, yes, everything is always going to be perfect and everything is going to work out. But those things that we tell ourselves, almost 100%, it's a lie. And if that would be one of the things I would have probably would have liked to have told myself earlier in life.
Well, I just want to thank you. I really want to take the opportunity on behalf of all of your guests to really thank you for giving yourself permission to launch the Leapcast, to dream big, and to, I know, have so many guests that really have exceeded even your expectations of who these guests were going to be, who were going to come. You just believed, and people came and they shared their stories of inspiration and how they gave themselves permission, and how their stories really can influence so many people. And I think that the beauty of this guest list, and we couldn't call out everyone. I was just thinking also about a friend, Jan, our friend, Jan. I don't know why I'm blanking now, but
That's
whatever.
fine. No, I mean we've had lots of friends on here, so
Yes,
yeah,
we
yeah.
have.
Yanelli, definitely another one
Yes,
of those new friends.
yes,
But
yes, yes,
we've had Tanya Nyack, we've had good friend
yes.
Frank Sean
Joshua
Johnson.
Johnson is an amazing story, super funny, a really amazing story. But I just want to thank you because you gave yourself permission, and so many of us have really reaped the benefits of that. And I just wanted to say that there's something here for everyone. I think the beauty of all of these different guests, the educators, the entertainers, the those who have started businesses and nonprofit organizations, those who are musicians and are, as he said, artists, and those who are just doing amazing, amazing, amazing things. And so are you. And you can find someone here scrolling through this guest list. There's someone for everyone. And I think there are points of affinity for all of our us and all of the stories that are presented here. So I just encourage you to not only watch yourself, to kind of go through that guest list and listen to as many as you can, but to share them with your friends and your family, share them with someone who you feel like needs to give themselves permission, share them with someone who you feel like can be inspired by the messages of these stories, these amazing stories. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to all the guests for being willing to say yes. We thank you, every last guest who has taken time to participate. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for believing in George. Thank you for believing in the Leapcast and giving your time and energy to be vulnerable and share your stories. We have been inspired by your stories. So thank you. We have been inspired. We have taken notes. We have, as the listeners, we have said yes to something that maybe we would have said no to because of your story. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you, Candace, my wife, Dr. Candace Robertson-James, for joining me today, for asking me my questions, putting me on the seat. But I really appreciate that you've been there, that you've been supportive, you've been, yeah, listening to folks, and drawing inspiration, and even allowing, being in moments where she's in the car and she's listening, and then picking up the kids and they're listening. So it's like it's been a family affair, and so
Yes.
it means a lot to have that support. And thank you all for listening, for joining in, for I know some of you listen to wherever you get your podcast, maybe Apple, Spotify, or other places. I know some of you have also watched on YouTube as I've released the videos as well. So thank you all for how you supported. And this will be my request. I would really love two things. One, if you have any thoughts or experiences or things that have been impactful for you from Leapcast, for you to just send me an email. The best way to do that is assistant at georgetalks.com. So assistant at georgetalks, TALKS.com. So send me your experience. What has really spoken to you or been inspiring to you throughout this? What have you taken from the journey? And two, uh, if you have a idea of a guest or someone that you like, oh, I would love to hear this person's story. I would love to hear their leap story. I would love to hear how did they give themselves permission. Reach out, let me know. If you happen to be one of those people, reach out, let me know. Once again, assistant at georgetalks.com. Would love to hear your thoughts. And I want to give like some quick shout outs. Obviously, my wife here, she's been a listener, my children, Nalani and Alex, thank you. I also want to give a shout out to Evan Cardone, who was my graduate assistant at the time, who was so instrumental in helping me in the early phases of just going through all the things I needed. I want to give another shout out to Laura Benton, who is on the other side of the country, who has been so amazing. She's in the Seattle area, faithfully listens, shares, lets me know what she's experiencing from the episodes. There's so many people who have been really great. I see it. And once again, some people, they might not send me a message, but then they might then just when I see them next, they're like, "Oh, that episode was so great." So thank you everybody who have listened, who have watched, and who have shared. And if you haven't at this point, I ask you to please do so. Please give it a 5-star rating. You know that helps. Please also subscribe, download, and share with others. Share everywhere you go on social media, or just copy the link and send it to someone that you know or that you think might be beneficial. I really am grateful for this anniversary of LEAPCAST, honoring my parents and their wedding anniversary, and just to inspire people through these journeys, through these stories, through their LEAP story, and through the ability to say that I give myself permission to push forward and to be incredible. And so, thank you again for joining me. Any last words before we wrap?
I just want to say thank you again. And I hope that you all will listen. Let's go back to listen to the episodes that you've missed. Share, download, as George just said. I'm just wanted to, again, one last guest shout out Lanye and her family, because
Episode was great.
they really embody this concept of giving yourself permission. And so, as you were talking, I was just thinking, what if we always have this kind of cliche in our society now of like, I'm living my best life. But what if we really were about living our best life, and understanding what that would look like? And that's all about giving ourselves permission. So what if we were able to really start a movement and to inspire people to give themselves permission to live their best lives, to try, to put themselves out there, even permission to fail? And you hear about that in many of these episodes. So I'm excited. It's only year one, guys. It's only year one, and we are here and excited. I've been so inspired personally. So thank you. Thank you to the guests. Thank you, George, for moving forward in this idea and manifesting it. We are just grateful to God for this opportunity to engage with all of you all, the listeners, as well as all of the amazing guests. We are grateful, grateful, grateful for every single person who is connected. And we are just excited to see what's to come, the guests who are to come, the audience members, the listeners. And so I'm just grateful. And I'd like to just see us continue to grow. And let's see if we can inspire permission.
I like that. I like that. And just real quickly, that episode that you mentioned was with Lanye Perrine, was episode 6, Trust Your Inner Creative and Take the Leap of Faith.
Yes.
Amazing. Some of my other actor friends. There was also Tony Goins, episode 12,
Yes.
Pursuing my passion for acting brought me billions. And then there's also the episode with Nakia Dillard, where his as an actor who now can be seen on the Wonder Years, the most recent version of the Wonder Years, and his episode is 31, giving you all, giving your all to your craft and living empty. Just powerful episodes. We weren't able to go through all of them or highlight all of them. Rayonda Vereen, who hers episode 28, achieving success through perseverance, has done a lot of stuff in terms of costuming and styling for folks on TV and in movies. Just amazing people and what they've done. So I'm grateful. I'm honored to be in this position, to hear the stories, to share the stories, and to just capture this. And we have some amazing guests coming up. Oh, I think I cried probably like 3 times in some of these episodes coming up. They're just so powerful, so amazing, so impactful. people just digging deep and talking about their journey of perseverance, of giving themselves permission, but also about mental wellness and how important and how that intersects with giving yourself permission connects with your ability to be mentally well and to do the things that you need for that. So thank you all for this listening to this anniversary edition of LEAPCAST. I hope that you share it with others. I hope that you go back and listen to some of the episodes. If you listen to it again. If you haven't, try it out this time. Thanks once again. Have a good one. Wow. What an incredible ride we just went on with another great member of the LEAPCAST community. I appreciate you listening and hope you got some tangible value from the episode. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment, rating, and review. As always, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Dr. George James, and I'll see you next time.